Us to turn, if you would, book of Revelation chapter 13 tonight. We're going to be in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. Revelation, we'll be all over the place, tell you the truth. Revelation chapter 13, we're looking at the Antichrist. Last Sunday night, last Sunday night we left off looking at Alexander the Great and the book of Daniel. We mentioned about that, how, of course, there's the leopard on the run, and so fast his kingdom, the world that then was, the Grecian world, how he rose to power so quickly, and he wanted to, the reason why we have, anybody know why we have a Greek New Testament today? How'd that wind up? Because that was the common language, the common Koine Greek, right? The common Greek language, that's the folks on the street. You talk to them so they could understand that language back then. Of course, the Hebrew Bible, we have the Old Testament Hebrew and Aramaic, book of Daniel especially, just a couple chapters there, that's it. Not a whole lot. And of course, in the New Testament, we find that over the head of Christ on the cross of Calvary in three languages. It wasn't Aramaic, it was Latin, it was Greek, Hebrew, and Latin. And why Latin? Because of the Roman Empire, the world of the. So isn't it amazing that the centurion? I wonder if the centurion had something to do thinking about that heading over there. He was king of the Jews. It was in Latin. He could understand. He could read it. And of course, God's Spirit convicting his heart led to his conversion. Truly, this was the Son of God. But we're talking about the anti-God, the Antichrist. That's what we're looking at now. Revelation chapter 13, if you would. Let's begin in verse 1 down to verse 9. Revelation 13:1, and I stood upon the sand of the sea and saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads, 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his heads the name of blasphemy. And the beast which I saw was like a leopard, and his feet like the feet of a bear. His mouth like a lion, and the dragon gave him power. And his seat, and great authority. And I saw one of the heads, as it were, wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed. And all the world wondered in astonishment after the beast. And they worshipped the dragon, which gave power unto the beast, and they worshipped the beast, saying, Who is like unto the beast? Who is able to make war with him? And I want you to see that before we go any further in that verse 4. Read it again. Notice it says that they worshipped the dragon, Satan, and they worshipped the beast. You see that? Now that's the Antichrist. Now let's verse 5. And there was given unto him a mouth speaking great things and blasphemies. And the power was given unto him to continue 42 months or 3.5 years or 1260 days. And he opened his mouth in blasphemy against God, to blaspheme his name, and his tabernacle, and them that dwell in heaven. Why? Because he can't get at them, can he? And it was given unto him to make war with the saints, and to overcome them. It was given unto him, though. He wasn't able to do it unless God permitted it. During the tribulation period, it's going to be terrible to be a child of God. The saints will be crushed, won't they? Here we see, not all, but we see here it says he makes war with them and overcomes them, puts them to death. And every knee that will not bow to the Antichrist and Satan and not receive the mark of the beast, they will be put to death. They'll not be able to buy or eat. They'll be put to death. And power was given him over all kindreds, tongues, and nations. Verse 8, and all that dwell upon the earth that shall worship him. How many? All that dwell upon the earth shall worship him. I mean, folks, today we are in the minority, and then you think we're in the minority today. All they that dwell upon the earth, folks, are living in not only the last days, we're living like on the last footsteps of these things that are about to take place. What you see in Europe today, the EU that came in, and that's many believe that's where the Antichrist is going to come from over there. Okay, by the way, and the beast out of the sea, as we mentioned already, is the beast that it is going to be a Gentile ruler, a world ruler, Gentile. And we believe that second beast, we'll look at him later. But this first one we want to finish up on. And notice in verse 9, and we'll go to the Lord in prayer, if any have an ear, let him hear. If any man hath an ear, let him hear. We're looking at the rise of the Antichrist in Revelation 13 here. And of course, the false prophet that will give accreditation to the Antichrist. He's in the next verses, and that will be, we'll look at him solely next Sunday evening. But we're looking at the lawless one lurking here. We see him. What's the coming of the lawless one? There's a lot of different titles that are given to him. What we have is on the scene, we have the devil. We see that in the shortest term, there's going to appear one man who's going to rule it all. Soon and very soon, there's going to, out of the ashes of this pathetic society and globe world, there's going to be attempts to govern by one ruler, and that attempt will be successful. Now, there have been many attempts, and many world rulers, and the world that then was, all the way back in the Old Testament that we read about, there's always been somebody that wanted to have world domination, but this one will be different than any other. And that's what the book of Daniel describes. This one here, he's going to be different. He'll be all of what you see in the book of Daniel, all packed, wrapped together in one, and then energized by Satan to bring it about. And will be successful. How successful? To overcome the saints during the tribulation period, like in Revelation chapter 7. Jew and Gentile. The Jews are sealed. The Gentiles, we see a great multitude of them. We've seen already in Revelation chapter 6 the souls under the altar. How long are they? They say, how long, O Lord? Until your vengeance down upon our blood that's been shed. Who are they? Those are the souls during the tribulation period. And vengeance is mine, saith the Lord. And sure enough, at the end of the tribulation period is when he brings about that vengeance, the vengeance of the Lord. And oh boy, to those who are here upon this earth when that happens, they that receive the mark of the beast. So soon and very soon, we're going to see out of the ashes of this pathetic attempts to govern ourselves arises this leader with all the aforementioned attributes that will appear to have all the answers, and the world's going to willingly follow him. And so, who is this guy? Well, today we have the internet, right, Danny? We have satellite communications. Folks, you can see what's going on over on the other side of the globe today. We see all of that. We have cable television, the scenario everywhere in the world. We have the internet. You can communicate with the internet. We have satellite communication. Really, virtually every country on the face of the earth, man. Even now, modern weapons can even reach any part of the world, which is scary, in just mere minutes. They used to call them the Minuteman missiles, and they've increased on their capability far greater. We can destroy several worlds 10 times over, maybe 100 times over. Men and nations no longer live in isolation. No man liveth unto himself, and sure enough, of course, there are other factors that make the ascendance of this Antichrist, of a global leader that is, more of a reality than ever before. The Bible predicts that worldwide chaos. Hey, we're there, aren't we? Did you see on the news just even today, like yesterday, last night, I noticed last night that they're having riots over there again. Again, riots over there in Europe because of what's going on right now. I'm not saying that it's going to happen here just any minute, but I'm telling you, everything is right. By the way, you did know that there's nothing that Christ has, nothing in the Bible has to be fulfilled, no prophecy fulfilled for the Lord to come back right this very second. You realize that, right? Nothing. What's next as far as God's calendar of timetable of what's the events that's going to take place is the rapture takes place, and that starts the tribulation period, and then here he comes on the scene. He'll rise up. Most believe that he's going to rise up out of the old Roman Empire, which is over there in Europe. The EU over there has brought all those nations together. We see that a lot of things have come together, folks. A lot of the factors right now. And the Bible predicts and has predicted worldwide chaos at this time. Instability and disorder is going to increase, and sure has, as we're approaching the end of the age and the end of the hour. the last days. These are the last days. So the Lord Jesus Christ, he even said that there's going to be wars and rumors of wars, and he said the end is not yet, though. No, it'll be at the end of the tribulation. That's the end right there. But the wars and the rumors of wars and the famines, the earthquakes, the pestilences, all those various places that they'll take place. Matthew chapter 24, Mark chapter 14, and in Luke chapter 21, the Lord gives us prophecy of the last days. The devastation that's caused by these increasing events are going to trigger this worldwide outcry for this man with the plan, the man with all the answers. So considering all that, bankrupt nations, by the way, did you see down there that communistic, Bernie Sanders, who wants to have what they've already got down there in Argentina? Did you see what took place down there? Communistic ways just don't seem to make it, do they? Greece is living off they're mooching off the rest of the nations over there. Greece, they're about ready to fold up. They are. They're getting worse. They're taking out debts. they've refinanced. They've got their great grandchildren going to have to get them out of the mess. They think anyway. They're selling them off as far as their the debt that they will owe. They keep borrowing into the future, hey, just throw it on down, kick that ball down the line. That's what they say. But the devastation caused by these increasing events are going to trigger a worldwide outcry, and they are right now, for relief and order at any cost. You'll have to give. The old devil's formula, I think Brother Berlin Heisel brought this out in a theology class a long time ago. And he mentioned, the devil's in his dastardly wisdom, he'll give up a few in order to gain a whole lot, and that's the way Satan does. Oh yeah. They're just like there's a pleasure in sin, but it's for a season. So to the wind, reap the whirlwind. And so we see in our own political campaigns, man, how quickly people gravitate to charisma and power. I don't know if you want to call it charisma or just a big mouth. I'm not sure. But anyway, you give us a good-looking, fine-looking candidate with a golden voice, a powerful presence, somebody said, and the ability to enthrall people with a vague rhetoric. Well, I don't think I'm describing anybody today. I think we don't have any of such candidate. But there will be one that rises up, and it's going to be not just nationally here, it will be globally. And will rise up, and we're just like sheep to the slaughter, man. And that's what's going to happen. Thank God I am saved. You ought to be thankful right now that you are saved. It's not appointed unto you, only because God in mercy loved you, drew you out. So, and that's the only reason why. Those folks that are saved during the tribulation period, they will be slaughtered. They will be butchered. They're not good. Their lives will be taken. I'm not trying to scare anybody. I'm telling you the facts. The Bible teaches this. It's so. It says he makes war with the saints and overcomes them. You're going to see that. So we want to dwell for a moment on those who and what this ruler really is here. The most common name that we hear today is the Antichrist, right? The Antichrist. But did you know that that name, in actuality, the name Antichrist is only used 4 times in the New Testament? Did you know that? Well, in fact, you go to the Old Testament, it's 1 John 2:18, verse 24, 1 John 4:3, and 2 John 7, right? He's not called, listen, back from the Old Testament, the Antichrist had been prophecy of this one who would bring it all together. Daniel chapter 8, Daniel chapter 9 and verse 26, the prince who is to come, he's called the prince who is to come. He's called and described as the fierce king in Daniel chapter 8, verse 23. He is the master of intrigue in Daniel 8:23. He's also a despicable man in Daniel 11:21. These are descriptions of the Antichrist. We just know him as one. He had many names and descriptive titles. And also, he is the one who brings destruction in 2 Thessalonians 2:3. He in Zechariah 11:16, he is a worthless shepherd. In 2 Thessalonians 2:8, we find he is the lawless one. He is the evil man in 2 Thessalonians 2:9. And he is described here in Revelation 13:1 as the beast. Why beast? Why is it, as I mentioned last week about in the book of Daniel, why we find in Daniel chapter 2 and chapter 7, by the way, 2 and 7 are the same Gentile nations. They look real pretty, just like an image of gold and silver and all. Beautiful, beautiful image that Nebuchadnezzar saw in his dream. And Daniel, by the Spirit of God, revealed it to. He said, now you're the head. Nebuchadnezzar, Babylonian Empire, you're right. It starts right here, the biggest. You're the head. And on down, all the way down to the Roman Empire, and of course the toes and the stuff stuck in between the toes, Get a little bit ridiculous there. But anyway, but what you have is you have all these different descriptives of this guy, right? And back in Daniel chapter 2, the Gentile nations, the whole book of Daniel is about the Jewish people. The Lord's plan, purpose, timeline for the Jewish people. And what does it culminate into? The time of Jacob's trouble. And that's what we see all the way. The Lord even prophesied of it himself in the Gospels, during his earthly ministry. He gave us that. Already been written about it all the way back in Daniel chapter 2. The whole book of Daniel. Seal up the book, Daniel, for the time of pertaining to thy people, that is Israel, is not yet. It's not yet, but it will be later. And here we see it's just about ready to unfold. So what you have is that Daniel is describing the Gentile nations. And how are they described? Well, how do they look at themselves? Oh, they look in the mirror and they look so beautiful. They look like that gold and silver, and they're just adorable and desirous, But really, the same nations that you see in Daniel 2 are over in Daniel 7. But how are they described over in Daniel chapter 7? As beasts, vicious, hateful beasts, tearing apart their prey. See, that's how the Gentile nations rule. So that's always been that way. They've been cruel. They eat their own, They kill their own. They do. And you could say, well, the way our nation has gone now, man. I mean, look at with abortion. Huh? We kill our own. Kind of beastly, wouldn't you say? Yes. The Gentile nations. Okay. Having said that, so we say that in Revelation 13:1 here, the beast. Now, the Antichrist is introduced and described in great detail all through Scripture. Old Testament, New Testament, we got a lot of detail. And by the way, did you know if you were to Google, go home and try this, go home and Google, type in, who is the Antichrist? Who is Antichrist? You'll come up with, man, I don't know how many million hits that you'll come up with. Everybody wants to know who the Antichrist is. Well, how about looking in the Bible? How about studying the Bible? How about listening to God? And we'll find out, to be forewarned, to be forearmed, right? Ready to go. We won't be here. If you know who the Antichrist is, would you point him out to me, please? Because I haven't met him, and I don't think you have yet. So who is this coming world ruler? Well, Revelation 13, which follows the 12th chapter, the 12th chapter of Revelation, you've got the dragon over there, or Satan. You remember over there being thrown out of heaven in a great war in that 12th chapter. Then in this 13th chapter, we see that the dragon comes to earth to begin his program. That by setting up his man, his representative, who is the Antichrist. And now what we do, we tie this chapter here with some of the passages from the book of Daniel, chapter 8, verse 23 down to verse 26, and you got a good profile anyway of this leader by seeing how he comes to power from varying viewpoints. And each of these viewpoints, by the way, political, national, spiritual, providential, you'll see. It gives us a pretty good portrait. In other words, you take the whole Bible. That's the whole idea. You take the whole Bible. If you want to get a good view, all-around view of what he's like. So let's take a quick glance. And what is he going to be like? Well, Daniel chapter 7, and you don't need to turn there. I'm not going to ask you to turn there if you want to. Turn there, that's fine. But we look and we see the political unknown back there in Daniel chapter 7 tells us that he won't make a big splash as he emerges upon the scene. Everybody's looking for like he's going to be, a lightning from the sky or something like that. No, not a big splash at the beginning. We find that when he comes on the scene, because he's going to come into the political, he's going to come as a political unknown. And what happens is here, the prophecy shows that he comes in the picture as a a little horn. That's Daniel chapter 7. Comes in as a little horn in verse 8 there. But he grows up to be a big horn. Yeah. You know, remember the old train, I can. And yeah. Okay, some of you have read that story, I take it, right? But anyway, the little horn grows to be a big horn, and prophecy also shows, Revelation 13, that he rises from among the masses of ordinary people. He's just like you and me. I mean, hey, he's the guy, though. He's getting big. Little horn getting big to be a big horn, big shot. As Brother Crane used to say, you know what a big shot is? He's a little squirt away from home. That's what a big shot is, a little horn. But the sea in the Bible is symbolic and stands for the general masses of humanity. If you study your Bible, anybody studies their Bible, they know that's so. So out of the troubled sea, Isaiah 59:1, you know, the humanity is like the troubled sea, foaming up its filth, you know, and that's how this world outside of Christ and fallen depraved nature, that's what happens. So here's what we have. We have the Gentile nations. So we confirm that over there in Revelation chapter 17 and verse 15 over there, talking about the sea being the general masses of humanity. And then the angel said to me, the waters you see, where the prostitute sits over there, the whore. And by the way, the Antichrist is going to hate the whore. The devil hates the whore. The devil only uses just like, and she's a whore, just for his own purpose. And then when he's through with her, you know, he throws her to the side like trash, you know, like a candy wrapper. Just, boom, that's it. And so the waters that thou seest, where the whore sits, the prostitute, there are peoples, multitudes, nations, and languages. What's that mean? What global, religious, and by the way, whenever female, feminine, you find all through the Old Testament. By the way, did you know that the Lord's bride, talking about the Lord's church, somebody say, well, church, well, what will constitute out of all true New Testament churches makes up the bride. Religion is always described in the feminine, you know. It's amazing, like Jehovah married Israel, gave her a bill of divorce in Jeremiah, and will bring her back in, take her back in. You'll find that this woman over here is a religious system. Revelation 17, a religious system. Revelation 18, continuing about Babylon. Babylon, the religious aspect, is in the 17th chapter. The world economy, the economics, populace over there, is in the 18th chapter. You're looking at two aspects of the same, okay? You're looking at the same, the world of religion and the world of the economy, okay? And both worlds in rebellion towards the Lord. Anyways, haven't said that. So we want to look at he's going to come from a Gentile nation. We know that so. As to where, because of the prophecies of Daniel 2 and 7 and Revelation 13. Now let me give you some of the attributes of this Antichrist. He'll be charismatic. These are all out of Daniel chapter 7. Well, three of them. I'll just give you three of them. It's going to be charismatic. And Daniel chapter 7 and verse 7 and 8 and verse 25 says this. After this I saw in the night visions, and behold, a fourth beast, number 4. And there were eyes like the eyes of a man, and a mouth speaking blasphemous words. Hey, sounds like over in Revelation, doesn't it? Here he is over here in the book of Daniel. Here he is over here in the book of Revelation. So Old Testament, New Testament, description, and what kind of attribute things that we attribute to descriptive of him. What kind of a person or creature is he going to be? Well, he's going to be charismatic. Going to be charismatic. So Daniel gives us one of the characteristics of the coming ruler. Charismatic personality enhanced by great speaking ability, which he'll use to sway the masses of... I heard about a church service went on one time like this, you know. There was this preacher, and he didn't preach one lick of truth. But as the ladies were going out, these two women were going out the door. The one lady said to the other, she said, did you hear what he said? And the other woman said, no. But did you hear the way he said it? Moved, swayed, you know. I used to say that, you know, in an ordination service, sometimes, you know, it's scary that sometimes we lay our empty hands on empty heads, you know. And that's a scary thing. But anyway, we're talking about somebody that's very charismatic. He's got a lot of pomp about pompous words against God, though. He could shoot off with the mouth, but he's shooting against God, his tabernacle, his sanctuary, and that is heaven. Curse God. We heard from Mrs. Job, curse God and die, Job, was her advice. And he said, woman, you speak like a fool. Anyway, he'll be very charismatic. And Daniel goes on by saying that he's a man whose appearance was greater than his fellows. There it is right there. Daniel says in Daniel 7 and verse 20 that his appearance will be greater. He'll stand out in the crowd. Just like King Saul, head and shoulders above the rest, He's going to stand out in the crowd. So, in outward appearance, he will be very attractive, some say. That combination of that magnetic personality, the speaking ability, and the physical good looks make him a sure winner. Your vote would be for him, no doubt. Irresistible to the masses. They'll vote him in. They can vote him in, and they will. They'll fall for. Anyway, this fella here, I'll tell you what's going to happen. He's going to be not only charismatic, write this down, he's going to be cunning, very cunning. And we see that in Daniel 7:8. It says, while I was thinking about the horns, Daniel's, wow, look at this. There appeared before me another horn, a little horn, which came up among them, and the three of the first horns were uprooted before it. They're gone. And this horn had eyes like the eyes of a man. He had a mouth that spoke boastfully or blasphemously. Say, Daniel was given a vision of this world leader. And he may not have understood all of it, but he sure did understand a lot of it as pertaining to his people, because God had made him to understand the visions that were given. So Daniel, we're told there in Daniel chapter 7 and verse 8, that he'll be very cunning. He'll be very cunning. In other words, he's going to take over the three kingdoms. They'll be gone, not by war, but by a clever political manipulation, And we find that so. Daniel reiterates that in the 11th chapter of Daniel, of his prophecy over there, telling us that this future leader, he'll come in peaceably. He'll seize the kingdom by intrigue, it says, in Daniel 11:21. And so the Antichrist is going to be a political genius, man. This guy's going to, you got to remember, he's energized by the devil. The devil's been around a long time. He's very powerful. And he's energized. And by the way, the devil knows your weaknesses. He sure does. And I should say he also knows your strengths. I hope that you know them. Or should I say your strength, singular. And he is Christ. So we see some of his attributes. He's going to be charismatic. He'll be cunning. And thirdly, write this down. This is the last one I want to cover here. We find that he'll be cruel. Daniel 7:23, in the latter part of their reign, when these rebels have become completely wicked, a stern-faced king, stern-faced, master of intrigue, is going to arise, and he's going to cause deceit to prosper, and he'll consider himself superior. And not only that, when they feel secure, that's when he's going to mount up and destroy many. He'll take a stand against the Prince of Princes. Do we have to go to the book of Daniel 7 to see this? How about the book of Revelation, chapter 6? The first few verses there that describe the four horsemen. Now you got to remember that four horsemen is really the four horses with one rider. He's the same guy. He comes in looking pretty good. He's riding on a white horse. Just like all those cowboy shows. He rides off into the sunset. This guy comes in with the white horse. He comes on the scene with the white horse, and the purpose is deception. You really don't know him. He's going to jump off that white horse right in the middle of the tribulation period and break that that 7-year peace treaty with Israel. And Israel's primed for the picking right now. They really are. And we find not only that, but we find that he's going to jump off that red horse, which is symbolic of blood, war, shed, lives taken. There's going to be a lot of bliss. He'll be cruel. Man, that's where if you don't receive the mark of the beast, and we get into that here in a little bit here, you don't receive the, when is it going to be demanded upon you to receive the mark of the beast? I say you, but they. In the middle of the tribulation period, that's it. Do or die. Do or die. And then from there, we find right after the red horse, after the bloodshed of those who will not, the saints are overcome. because of the Spirit of God that dwells in them. But there's a resurrection for them, amen. There's a new body that they've been promised, right? So, hey, don't fear him that can destroy body, but just fear him that can destroy both soul and body in Gehenna, the lake of fire. Not Hades, but Gehenna. Anyway, so he jumps off the red horse, and we see what follows the red horse. Of course, you've got pale, you've got black, you've got death there, you've got sickness, disease. That all comes, this the same guy. He brings it all. He looks pretty good at the start in the white, but he ends up in the black, doesn't he? So that's what we see there. So how is he? Charismatic on the scene, cunning in his dealings, and cruel in his handling of the globe. And because Satan he knows his time is short, and he's out for one thing. What is it? To be worshipped. To be worshipped. That's it. He said, I'll be like the Most High. I'll have my throne set up in the north, way up on high, in other words. And so you find that in Ezekiel chapter 28. You see Isaiah 14, Ezekiel 28, a prophecy about what the devil thinks he's going to be, but God's going to look upon him. Thou art just a man. You're nothing. You won't be lifted up. You'll be cast down into the lake of fire at the end of the millennial reign of Christ. The Lord's going to prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that he is God and there's none other. But then you have this intimidating presence here. You've got the four major kingdoms described by Daniel back there. You got Babylon, the lion, the Mede-Persian, the bear. The Greek Empire was described as like a leopard, and so swiftly Alexander the Great conquered. And then the Roman Empire like a 10-horned beast there in Daniel chapter 7. The descriptions there, the beast in Revelation, you've got all of that all in one. You see that? And so what we have, all these characteristics combined into one ominous creature in Revelation 13 and verse 2. Look at it again, Revelation 13, 2. We're going to have to hone this down here. And the beast which I saw was like unto a leopard, feet like the feet of a bear, mouth. See, he's got it all. He's become it all. All the different aspects, all the characteristics, all the qualities, the attributes of those nations are all combined in this one and only. Mr. One and Only comes on the scene, energized by Satan, the dragon. And so here's the intimidating presence of the Antichrist. And those descriptions there, you find it all here in Revelation. Now, there's spiritual blasphemies. In Daniel 7:25, you read about how that with a blasphemous mouth, he blasphemes God. What we read about in Revelation 13, that he blasphemes the God of heaven, his dwelling place, his tabernacle, right? And all that is of God, he hates and despises. Well, his mouth, he's going to be shut up real quick. And he'll be proved that his mouth just spews out what the world's been receiving for so long. And so spiritual blasphemies. Spiritual blasphemies. So Daniel warns us that this man, way back in the book of Daniel, is going to defy God, demand to be worshipped instead of him, and his demand will be met. Revelation 13:8, and all the inhabitants, you remember verse 8, Revelation 13:8, and all the inhabitants of the earth will worship the beast, all who is it? Look at verse 8. All whose names are not written. They're not written in the Lamb's book of life. Look at it says before the foundation of the world. When was this book written? It was written before, folks, before the sea was put out there and the land was put there, this universe, before this universe was created, there was a book, the Lamb's book of life. And in that book are all those for whom Jesus Christ died, his elect, his sheep. And his agenda, we find, the agenda of the Antichrist, one of the first things this world leader will do is to make peace with Israel. That's the first thing he's going to do. Mark it down. Folks, this is what it's all about, man. I mean, hey, where's problems in the Middle East? You go home tonight, turn on your news channel if you got a news channel, and I guarantee you, if you watched PBS, TBS, NBS, CBS, whatever hey, sooner or later you're going to hit, it's going to be covered. It will be covering you if you get world news tonight. It's going to tell you about the problems over there. I guarantee you, there's problems going on there right now. And it's just getting worse and worse. Hey, it's getting pretty bad. You think ISIS is something, and ISIS, I think, has a great part in this. ISIS has a great part in this. Really does. So that's why I believe the time is short. The time is at hand. But here's his agenda. The Antichrist will actually, some believe that the wound, a deadly wound, that he'll die, and he's going to mimic the resurrection of Christ. 3 days up from the grave he arose, and that will buy into the Jews, see? They'll come to understand, because we'll look at it next week. Next Sunday night, we're going to look at that. Someone is going to really turn the heads of the Jews, the Jewish leaders, the religious leaders over there, those religious leaders over there. They're trying to get it all together today. They're trying to get it back into what they want. They want to go in reverse. You see, they got that thing stuck in reverse. They're wanting to go back to the Old Testament sacrifices and everything. But what's going to be, because they're looking for their Messiah. The Antichrist is going to say, I'm here. Now, how do you know? Well, beast number 2 in Revelation 10, further down through there, 13th chapter. The beast that comes off the land, out of the country, the European country over there. That's where he's going to be coming out of. Now, did I say the European country? I'd say south of there. I think he'll be a Jew. In order to give accreditation to this guy that he is who they've been looking for, he's going to have to be of like of them. That's what most people believe, because it says that he comes out of the land, and that is descriptive of being a Jew. Out of Israel, that is, the land. So that's what we're going to look at, and that's concluding thought right there. And I don't know if you have anything to add to that or subtract from it, but that's what we're looking at. The little horn that becomes the big horn, or should I say, the little toot that becomes the big toot. And I'll tell you what, it may be humorous right now, but it ain't going to be during that time. The appearance of the Antichrist, he's going to be revealed. A rebellion we find take place, a revealing and a removing. Now, the rebellion, that's over in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. We'll get into that, but we don't want to go any further. I think we're going to just cut this short this evening and give you a break. I've been running in double overtime lately, and I don't want to do that. But I hope that this has whet your appetite to come back and find out about that other guy. And he will, I'll tell you what, he, with all deceivableness, it says, and God shall send them strong delusion. Now, what do you think with me? In 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, because they received not the love of the truth, and hey, the love of the truth, that means receiving Christ. Jesus said in John 5, I am come in his name, and I come in my name, and you receive me not. Another will come in his own, and talking about the Antichrist, him you will receive. Now, Jesus said that people will receive the Antichrist. That's what he's talking about there. Another will come in his own name. Him you'll receive. I'm in truth. In the name of Jehovah. And they rejected. They crucified the Lord of glory. So you see how we're going to get this over to the false witness, how we're going to get into the beast from the land, the false prophet. God's going to send them strong delusion that they'll even believe the lie. The lie. I believe it's the definite article there. They're going to believe the lie, and that is, they're going to believe this false prophet. The Jews. That's going to turn the table, and everybody's going to say, hey, hallelujah, it's a holiday on earth, but it won't be. It'll be hell on earth. Especially Revelation chapter 9, when the pit opens up.